Yeah? Okay. Okay. All right, we all set? All right. North Smithfield Town Council meeting, December 16th, 2024. Madam Clerk, can you start us with prayer and pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Biergard?
Here.
Mr. Christofaro?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Here.
Mr. Punchak?
Here.
Ms. House?
Here. Open forum? Thank you. Would anyone like to speak at open forum? No? All right, discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills. Anyone have any questions on the packet of payment of bills in your,
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So, just trying to understand where the numbers on the front come from. The general fund, I understand, the paid invoices, I get. The ACH payables, though, there's a number of 272, 264, 74. And I don't see where that lines up. I see where I think it should, but there's a number of 296,000. So where does that number coming from?
So the ACH payables are payables that we pay to either debt service or for, to say, the trust for our health or dental or anything that we wire.
So that should
essentially.
be this report here, but the bottom line on that report is 296,000. So why would there be a discrepancy of,
Which, what page are you on?
I'm on page 7 of the Town of North Smithfield Check Register Disbursement Fund,
Fund, yep. So 296.
and it was actually circled, I think, in mine, or unless I circled it.
No,
it is.
that's the,
So why, I just don't, like, what?
Yeah.
You get the question.
yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. Give me a second, let me. I don't see why there should be, unless this is the. I think I see the difference, let me just make sure it's correct. Yeah, so that's adding up the debt service as well. So if you look on the, on that first page, when you go down the green column,
Yep,
you look at debt service payment.
yep.
If you add the 272, 264 to the 24,375, you get to that 296.
So why are you adding it twice then? Oh, well, I get it. The
Yeah.
296 report has the 24 in it.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Then one other question. So on the stipends, and maybe this is just, I might already know the answer to this, but, so the library stipend, I went and looked at that account, and it was, the budget had 2 line items, maybe 3 line items. Where'd it go?
You're talking about under the detail expenditure status report?
Yeah, it was like the last report, and
Yep, I'm just trying to find
it had,
the appropriation.
yeah, well, the question was, with the library, you had
Yep.
the town contribution,
Yep,
and then you had state aid.
correct.
And that stipend was calculated by adding those 2 numbers and dividing by 12, which I get. But why would the school be different, whereas the school, that 1.8 million is just the school town appropriation? So why would one account have the state, reimbursement included and the other doesn't?
So you're comparing the, I just want to make sure we're on the
So,
same page.
all right, I
The-
found it. Library town appropriations,
Yep.
413, plus the library state aid is 95,000.
Correct.
total is 508, divide by 12, you get your number exactly, the 42,000.
Right.
But if you take the same assessment for the school,
You go all the way down to the school,
the
yep.
22 million plus the just under 8 million, divide them by 12, you get a different number. So why is it that just the town appropriation is in the stipend?
So
Because the state money goes direct to the school, or?
We get it straight from the state, and then we push it through to the school. We separately appropriate funds to the school on their own. So they're
So
they're
it's-
timed just a little bit differently.
So at some point, that state aid may show up in
Yes.
a monthly, okay,
Yeah, they will end up being the same amount. It's just they're timed differently.
gotcha.
Yep.
That was all I have.
Tony, I have one or two questions.
Sure.
And it's probably mostly just for my own education. Town of North Smithfield check register. I should have turned on my mic. Town of North Smithfield check register, page number 1. There are 2 line items for OpenGov Inc. for annual software.
Yep.
Same amount.
Give me 1 second. Check register page 1. There's so many pages here. OpenGov, yes, so that's not a duplicate. That is, it's actually a $12,000 bill that we split up
Okay.
between building and zoning and clerk.
Okay,
And then I'm pretty sure building and zoning gets their money back through the people we pay.
yeah.
They just have to submit for reimbursement.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And then, hold on, where's my other line item? See, Joanne, this is when a digital copy might come in a little bit.
Yes.
Line item, it's number 8, RP Iannuccio and Sons Construction Company for $244,000 Comstock rehabilitation. What was that for?
That's for the Comstock rehab for, that's from the APRA money that we received
Okay,
a while back, the COVID money.
okay.
That's, the water tanks?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for part of the project of the
Okay.
demolition and rehabilitation of,
Okay,
of those.
okay. That's all I had.
So I will then make a motion to approve the payment of bills. General fund, the amount of $107,015.87. ACH payables in the amount of $272,264.74. Sewer and water in the amount of $252,299.75 for a total of $631,580.36. And the stipends in the amount of library for $42,382.83. For the school department, $1,844,290.93. The fire department, $345,324.00. Debt service, which was an ACH payment already, in the amount of $24,375.00. Total payments, $2,887,953.12.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
One more thing just to add to that, just so the council knows, there won't be a payment of bills in the first meeting in January, because we have to cut the 1099s off. Marie has to cut it off in our accounting system and roll it over. So just so the council knows, there won't be one the first meeting.
Okay. Discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. A, Town Council minutes of November 18th and December 1st, 2024. Communications, Animal Control Monthly Report for November 2024. North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Monthly Report for November 2024. North Smithfield Municipal Court Monthly Report for November 2024. And North Smithfield Police Department Monthly Report for November 2024. Did anyone want to remove anything?
Can I ask a question?
without reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe there's nobody to answer, but I was just curious on the municipal court, NSPD traffic citations issued is 37, but the North Smithfield Police Department said citations, tickets issued is 77.
I had the same question.
Does that, why would there be a difference? Does anyone know?
I would guess that they also have tickets at the Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal. There's certain tickets that can't go to municipal court, like refusal, somebody driving under suspicion of driving while under the influence. If they refuse, that's a citation that has to go to the traffic tribunal. That is an educated guess, but it's not, I can't speak for the police department, but that's what I would guess it would be. There are certain citations can't go to municipal court.
All right, well, I'll accept it, I was just curious.
We'll confirm that, Councilman, for the next meeting, but I'll circle that and make sure you get that.
And I just had a question regarding the police department report for citations and tickets. So they said there's 159 stops, but only 77 tickets or citations. I was just wondering with the gap of what the difference was, but.
Confirm that as well, but not every traffic stop leads to a
No, but
ticket.
that's a big number, so.
This is Rhode Island, you know?
No, but
And
just to-
keep in mind, I just want you to also know that a traffic stop might lead to a traffic ticket or an arrest. And I'm not seeing the arrests on here. Oh, yes, I do, 25, it's down at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Okay,
So I will confirm that with the chief, but I got a strong suspicion that that's kind of influences those numbers.
okay. All right. Also, I'd like to remove the minutes of November 18th. Anyone else like to remove anything out of the consent agenda? Okay. So on November 18th, Joanne, the third page that starts with membership for Hollowell Committee, and then halfway down where it says owner's project manager, can you just separate that? Because there's two different things mixed together. It says owner's project manager, RFP out to bid for North Smithfield Police Station and award of bid for townwide crack ceiling. Can we just separate those for two different
Yeah,
items?
Don't know how that happened. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I guess just have to get the minutes about the RFP because there's nothing really mentioned about it. Okay. That's all I had. Anyone else have anything?
No.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Old business discussion by council vote or other action on status/progress report of specific items. Facility manager?
Yes, we are going to come back to the council on this. However, I wanted to first make sure that I had a meeting with Paul Nordstrom, who is the chairman of the Facilities Committee, Asset Management Committee, before I come back with more clarification and request for action.
I'd like to ask a question on that. Do we have a person in-house that has the license to do that? I
To-
think we do. I think that's
To be a facilities manager,
yeah.
I don't believe we have somebody in town hall staff. I know the school department does.
I think the town hall, the town, I always call it the bond, does one of the workers there.
Well, we clearly have people from Public Works, for example, that work with us, but in terms of whether or not they are a certified or licensed property manager, I have no idea. 'Cause-
I look into it.
okay, or if you would like, Councilwoman, I can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Administrator, just to let you know, prior, myself and Mr. Ogier had a call with DPW director, and also Scott Hawes from DPW. He's more or less in like cleaning and keeping things up to par, but he's not actually into like facilities manager type thing. So we've already had one of those meetings and talked about what he could do on a maintaining level, but not to the point of, I think, what we were kind of looking for the town.
Can I ask, do they give different types, or is it generally one, and you have to, I think, do it online, correct?
Hmm?
Do it online, you will get a certification.
I think what we're looking for, and I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Mr. Ogier was looking for in a facilities manager was more or less doing like a capital budget, like 4 or 5 years out for each building, and kind of setting up a schedule for maintenance and to make sure the buildings are being kept up to where they need and what needs to be replaced in so many years. I think that's kind of what Mr. Nordstrom and Mr. Ogier were kind of looking
Yeah.
for.
That's correct. And that's what I refer to as property management as opposed to facility maintenance. And I'm not familiar with whether or not there's a certification program for that or not, but clearly it's a unique skill set. And that's what DJ Officer wanted.
It's online.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is this position looking to be an employee of the town, or could it be a subcontract? There's,
You
tons
could,
of
you
property
could do it,
management.
you could do it either way. I'm not really sure that and this is just shooting from the hip, but I'm not really sure that the property assets that the town owns would warrant a full-time employee, unless there was some kind of joint venture done with the school department where we could actually share somebody. But beyond that, it's the kind of job that would probably be better managed remotely.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
This question is more for David, I think. The charter is pretty clear. It says that Director of Public Works is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the building. So would it require a charter change before we can hire a facilities manager?
Not necessarily, because again, I'd have to review that language, but the fact that their responsibility is under a director doesn't mean that the director does it. It could be somebody that works for the
So
director
he would
directly.
answer to the director?
Or it could be somebody who's hired as a subcontractor. So
Okay.
there's tons of responsibilities a director has that isn't necessarily performed by the director
Right.
specifically. So
Okay.
it could be clearly in that role, it might go through that department rather than, I don't think it would go from the administrator directly to the facility manager. I think it would go administrator, DPW, facility manager. That would be my guess. I'll confirm that, though, for you.
Thank you.
So what are the next steps with this? Like, how does this move forward?
After I have a conversation with Mr. Nordstrom, I will come back to the council with a more definitive suggestion as to how we could go forward with this.
10-4.
Any other questions on this? Human resource position. I've had a conversation with the administrator, and this is something that will be ongoing, and work with the administrator on filling this position. So the Municipal Building Review Task Force, so I received an update from Eric Ami. He said that his consulting engineer signed up and kicked off. They had a low voltage designer, met with the chief last week. Brian will be meeting with Mark Carullo regarding the OPM RFP. Their design development drawings be ready to go out for cost estimating in mid-January. And then they'd be looking to have a meeting with the small subcommittee, which is myself, the chief, Mark Carullo, and the town administrator, and then coming back to the council. So as this goes on, I'll continue to update, but seems like it's moving along as quick as we asked them to. So, and they are also in contact with the grant writers to see what's coming up, if there's anything that they can assist with. So they continue to work on that, so I'll have updates as that continues. And then, anyone have any questions on that? Discussion by council vote or other action on salary and wage ordinance. Mr. St. Ange, second reading.
This is just the updated version of what I had presented a while back, just with new signatures. And there weren't really any changes. I had updated the, the water and sewer superintendent, assistant superintendent, and coordinator back to an hourly position, but that was the only changes that were made.
Can we ask questions? Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
So, first question is, the EMA deputy director, of everyone listed on this spreadsheet, is the only person who went down from 2024 to 2025. Is that correct?
Because he doesn't have a, let me just confirm it. Is it on the first, second? So. No, it went up from 9902. Oh, the deputy, sorry, yes.
Deputy.
Yeah, we currently don't have a deputy. So the EMA director had, because it's split between that salary gets reimbursed by the state. So he had said we don't really need as much. We don't have a director as of right now, so he had dropped it a little bit.
Okay, and then my other question is on Camp Phoenix, separate fund. So I know I'm new on the job, 15 days in. I haven't seen anything associated with Camp Phoenix. So how are we, able to
You
make-
won't see anything from Camp Phoenix until they start. They come in for like 6 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks in the summer. I'm trying to think of when they start. I think it's like late May as to when we start seeing like invoices and stuff like that you'll see on the payment of bills. But in terms of payment to these individuals, you won't see until the camp actually starts.
So how, for a program director to go from $17 an hour to $23, that's in excess of 35% increase. Like, how can, in today's, economy, how can, I just don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, okay, I'm
Well,
gonna just
they-
go along with this. Why
Yeah.
can't it be like a phased increase, something like, all right, it's $2 this year, $2 the next year, $2 the following year?
Yeah, the camp director had mentioned that it's been a while since any position in that entire camp has received any type of bump. They are self-funded. They don't use any town
So then
funds.
why are we being asked to have input on this, I guess?
Because they still run through the town. They are owned by the town. So you still have to approve the fact that they get paid.
Do you
But
see my dilemma?
I see the dilemma, but there's no impact on the taxpayers. There's impact on people who choose to go.
So clarifying question then, if you're saying that they're self-funded, would the rates of the camp increase in order to cover the cost of the employees?
Correct. Their rates would they would increase.
And
But
is Camp Phoenix well-attended? Like,
as far, they have to constantly turn people away.
okay,
Yeah, I was talking to him actually a couple months ago. He had stopped by, and he was saying how they've found the perfect attendance rate, and
Okay.
now they have to start turning people away. They even have people hitting me up like 2 months ago asking to attend for next year. So it's very in high demand. They're one of the few entities within our town that are fully self-funded and generate profit on their own, separate.
How are the children covered with insurance when they're on school ground and something happens?
That
Do they buy their own?
I'd have to get back to you. I'm not exactly sure of the insurance. I know the staff is covered, but in terms of the students themselves, I don't have an exact, I've never asked that, but I can get back to you on that.
So both of my sons have attended Camp Phoenix, and they have also been CITs at Camp Phoenix and have been counselors at Camp Phoenix. Through the years of attendance, I can say that I never recall paying a separate insurance fee.
Yeah, there's a lot of, they're no different than being an employee of the town, because they essentially are. We have files on every employee that come in, right upstairs.
I was
Just-
talking about when they were campers, not.
Oh, campers, oh,
Employees.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thought CIT was like a
That's
specific
a
brand.
counselor in training.
Gotcha.
So what are we, like, I don't know, what are we being asked to do with this?
You're being asked, the council's being asked to pay everyone here these rates.
And it's important to point out that this is the second reading,
Hmm.
so we already had one reading, and this has already, been part of our financial reporting.
Does anyone have any other questions on this? Anyone want to make a motion to accept the second reading of the wages, the wage ordinance?
Make motion to accept the second reading of the, new wages.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
No.
Ms. South.
Yes. New business discussion by council vote or other action on proposed memorandum of understanding, MOU, by and between North Smithfield Fire and Rescue, Inc. and the town of North Smithfield. Chief Shadier.
Good evening. We're just here tonight to seek your approval for the MOA that David and I worked on in regards to the 2 long-term injuries and an illness that we have on duty.
Madam President, I just want to make sure, Chief, I don't know if all the new council people are aware of this, as long as they are, because, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure new council, because this is kind of transition this
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe they were in the executive session.
For the public, Chief, you may want to just explain it.
I'm sorry?
You may want to just explain it for the public who's
Sure.
watching.
What this MOU does is it moves away from us having to use Section 6 of the contract between us, North Smithfield Fire and Rescue and the town, which basically says that any extraordinary expenses that would occur because of a member being injured in the line of duty, that we would invoice you, and in turn, the town would reimburse us. What this does is basically says we would agree to reduce our staffing, from our additional rescue staffing from 7 days a week to 5 days a week. And in turn, the council would continue to pay us for the 7 days and not rely on Section 6 of the contract until such time as where we can get our staffing back up to speed, where we can put the additional rescue unit back on 7 days a week.
So Chief, with still maintaining the rescue 5 days a week, how is your overtime? Is it,
It's going to reduce it dramatically.
so you're in a better position?
Yes, we will be in a much better position by bringing that down, just those 2 days a week. That'll help us a lot.
And do we still have people in the academy, or we have people lined up for the next academy?
We have people lined up for the next academy, yes. Unfortunately, the one firefighter that we had in this academy that's graduating on Friday didn't meet the requirements to be able to graduate.
So we have 2 into the next?
We
or-
have 3 going into the
3.
next, because they're gonna take that spot that was vacated by this gentleman that wasn't able to fulfill the requirements. So now, in February, we'll have 3 going in.
And they'll come out when?
They'll come out in May, and by the time they're done with their orientation, we're looking at probably sometime in July before they're ready to hit the floor.
Can I have a question?
Mm-hmm.
Does the town pay for them to go to the academy?
We do, yes.
So,
That's part of this, the stipend that you do, that,
so if somebody doesn't make it through, it's just better luck next time?
well, it's
Can we talk about,
We're only gonna talk about the individual.
okay.
Okay.
You're talking about in general terms, right, Chief?
Yes. We do have a contract of understanding for all of our new members, and all of the expectations that they are expected to meet along the way, especially during their probationary period. The unfortunate part is that when I drafted this contract of understanding, it was always with the thought that I was drafting this so that people that we hired, if they moved on to another fire department, we would recoup all of that money. This is my first time go-around where I've had to terminate somebody because they didn't meet the requirements, and now I have to change that contract because it basically says, if you voluntarily leave the department, you have to pay us back. In 40 years, I've never had to terminate anybody, so.
Fortunate.
Again, Chief, I didn't think you were talking about anyone in particular, so, I mean, you're not, I don't want you to talk about someone you're terminating.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion regarding the MOU?
I'll make a motion to accept the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, by and between North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Service, Inc., and the town of North Smithfield,
Authorize the administrator to execute.
and authorize the administrator to execute.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. House.
Yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Enjoy your holidays.
You
too.
too. Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, if possible, would it be, if we can get this moving along, I can implement this next week. So if we can get this signed, you know,
I'll be in my office all day tomorrow.
okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on selecting a date for a joint meeting between the town council, the Hallowell Review Committee, and the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee. Met with the Multi-Generational Committee on Thursday, and Mr. Porter also sat in from the Hallowell Review Committee for a little bit, and it seemed like the week of the 13th would work for a joint meeting. So if that would work for the council. They said on the 13th, I'm not sure if that would be a planning board meeting or not.
First Monday, second Monday?
They were actually looking at a Thursday.
Oh.
16th?
Yeah, 16th, right. I'm just saying the week of the 13th worked. So I don't know if the 16th would work, because that's, we normally had our meetings on Thursday, but I'm not sure if that's a planning board meeting.
There's a new calendar that just was issued by the clerk at the
Okay.
end of each year, and I don't have it put in my cell phone yet.
Okay.
Maybe we could, if you want to pick a couple dates on that week, and then we could have the
Yeah.
clerk can circulate an
Yeah.
email without violating the OMA.
Okay.
For purposes of confirming a scheduled date.
All right, so, are you all set, Joanne? So if we can kind of survey the town council, the Hallowell Review, and the multi-generational for the week of the 13th, and see which dates work for everyone, so we can get that meeting, and then we can review the ordinance for the new committee, and then come back to the council. All right, thank you. No, it's going to be a separate meeting. Okay, discussion by council vote or other action on amendment of section 5-15 of the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 5, Article 2, entitled Length of Service, first reading. So you'll find this in your packet, which basically changes the length of service for a planning board or a zoning board of review to no more than 3 consecutive 5-year terms rather than 2 consecutive terms, and says 5 years shall have elapsed from the end of such 15 consecutive year period would be changed in the ordinance.
Can I ask a question? Why do we have term limits specific to the planning and zoning boards?
I don't know.
Again, good question. It appears that back in early 90s, this ordinance was created. I don't know what the impetus was. And we did have a discussion, I did have a discussion with the president that essentially every 5 years you have a choice not to vote someone in or keep someone out.
Right.
So this is, for whatever reason, this was a policy established by a council, and I think the president was of the opinion that she didn't want to just repeal it, but certainly you could repeal it and somebody could, after one term, you could not reappoint them. Just because you say they can
Right.
serve no more than 15 or 10, doesn't mean that they automatically get that second or third term.
Right, right. Well, and I mean, theoretically, when we think about, you know, the reappointments for, or at least the application for reappointment every 2 years, like with our committees, we can determine whether or not we want to reappoint somebody or not. So could the zoning and the planning board follow a similar requirement?
Oh, you're talking about making it 2 years instead of 5?
Well, I mean, 5 or 2, but I'm just saying, like, we can, rather than saying that we're limiting terms to, you know, 2 5-year terms, we could say, you know, there's no limit on terms, you have to apply for reappointment, and then we can determine whether or not we want to accept your reappointment.
That's perfectly another alternative, is that we would just, this is the first reading on this. If there's a proposal, based upon your information, we could consider a repeal of this completely at the next meeting, or an amendment. A repeal would mean this would go away, and they wouldn't be limited to 15 years, nor would they be entitled to any
Right.
specific amount of term. I was just going, the reason why I said about the 5 years is because there is some state law that suggests that zoning boards shall have 5-year terms.
Yeah.
And I don't know about planning boards, I'd have to look at that. So I wouldn't want you to mess around with the
Yeah,
terms
no.
unless I have time to look into that. But if you want to have the alternative of a repeal of this, I can present both of those for what my plan would be to have the next meeting, have a public hearing, and then a second reading.
Yeah, no, I'm aligned with 5-year terms. I think that 5 years allows for, you know, you get established, right? There's continuity there, there's institutional knowledge. I think some of our planning board and zoning board members are doing a really excellent job, so I would hate to limit them, you know, based on this ordinance. I think, you know, you either apply for reappointment, and if we don't, you know, based on your performance, we don't think that you've done a great job, we don't accept your application. But I'm open to everybody's thoughts.
But I think that we have term limits as well. The administrator has term limits, and the reason for term limits is because people get too entrenched in their positions, and then on a local board or something like that, they can become too powerful.
Right,
Also, term limits encourages people to move out of the way and let new talent, new ideas come in.
yeah,
I think that if you increase it to 3 years, you might as well not even have term limits at that point, because 15 years is gonna kind of defeats the purpose of having term limits in the first place.
Yeah.
15 years is a long time. So I personally would like to see that we keep 2 5-year terms. I think that's long enough for somebody to serve on a board. I know we have somebody coming up on the board who I have a lot of respect for, who I would love to see stay on the board, but that's just the way it goes, you know? Term limits, I think, are a good thing. Whether you're the dog catcher, or whether you're the town administrator, or whether you're president of the United States, there should be term limits for everybody.
yeah, no, I get that, John, but for the zoning and planning board, you would reapply, and we could determine we want to see new talent on this, or new experience, diverse perspective on this zoning or planning board, and we could essentially accept their application over somebody that's been on the board for, you know, 15 years.
Yeah.
So I think we have the discretion to make those determinations. But I think, you know, I'm still aligned with the ability for folks to apply for reapplication, and then we can determine whether or not we want to reappoint them or not.
And is that continuous? Suppose you run twice, you're on twice, you leave, you're not appointed, you know, you don't make it. And
Mayor,
then
can
you
you
come
turn
back,
on
does
your-
that roll it over?
No, it seems
Does
like
that
the ordinance-
roll it over?
It seems like the ordinance, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like if you're off for one term, which would be 5 years, then you can come back again and start over again.
Okay.
And then alternates don't count towards your terms. It's just tough because these two boards, I mean, you really need someone with the knowledge on these
Right.
boards, you know, and, I mean, I understand where you're going, like, you don't want someone to be a lifetime person on the board, but especially with all the changes, it just seems like if someone has the knowledge and the experience,
Mhm.
I think an elected position versus an appointed position by default changes the game,
Right.
you know. People that are elected, I can understand because, you know, at some point, maybe you do. But like you've said, if these people are appointed by the council and they did a horrible job for 5 years, well, the likelihood, regardless of what this says, the likelihood of them being reappointed for,
Mhm.
you know, another 10 years just doesn't seem like it's gonna happen.
We're
Right.
appointed by the people. What's the difference?
They get to vote us out in 2 years,
Right.
Well,
right? So just because we say someone can serve for 3 terms doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen.
yeah, I think that they get too entrenched, and we've had some people on boards for many, many years, and they become, I think, they become a little powerful. And the problem with the zoning board and the planning board, they're very unique, and that's probably why they did this, is because the zoning board and the planning board can make decisions major decisions that affect the future of the town without it even coming before the town council or, you know, for a vote. They're appointed people, but they make major decisions that affect the town and the trajectory that the town's going in.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point, but also too, if they are making those really important decisions and we have somebody there that doesn't necessarily have the institutional knowledge or experience, then they're making important decisions that could have consequences.
How do you think the comprehensive planning that came into effect of 2024 is going to affect this, now that planners really get more power?
The new law, you're asking me the question, the
Yeah.
new law is creating obviously more powerful planners, more powerful building and zoning officials, a more powerful planning board, and actually diminishing the power of the zoning
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
That's just an overall view of and most importantly, diminishing the power of cities and towns.
Right.
If you're asking me what the state law does, that's what it does. Diminishes cities and towns, diminishes the zoning board, increases the planning board, and increases the power of the zoning official and the planner.
Mhm. And that's why I think it's even more important then to ensure that we have institutional knowledge on these boards.
Kind of wish the planner was here to get his opinion on this, you know?
I mean, we are gonna have a public hearing on this
Yeah,
at the next, before the next reading, either before, you got a choice. We can either have it just a public hearing at the next meeting or a public hearing with the second reading. Sometimes we do that when it's not controversial, but that's up to the council, or it's not contested. And the other thing I could do for that public hearing is I can have an amendment repealing this. So you'll have the repeal, you have the 15 years, and you'll have the choice. And the third choice is do nothing, repeal it, or increase it to 15 years. I'm not hearing that there's any other choices to consider.
yeah,
I think those are the three.
Madam President, can I say something?
yeah. absolutely.
I am a planner. I can see the reasoning behind the restrictions, but I could also see the need to keep somebody involved that's been doing a really good job. I've been around long enough to see some planning board members, not this town, but some planning board members and some zoning board members who get way over their skis and become really, really abusive. And they've got their towns in a lot of trouble. On the flip side, to lose people off a planning board that are well-intentioned and are experienced and developing experience to serve, we don't want to do that either as a town. So I think the fact that that power ultimately rests with the council as to whether to keep somebody on or not to keep somebody on, I think is the ultimate protection. But I can understand where this came from, because I've seen it before.
Mr. Administrator, if there's one thing that I've learned is that everybody's replaceable. So it doesn't matter how great somebody is on the planning board, somebody's gonna come along and they're gonna fill the spot just fine. Everybody is replaceable.
I don't know, John.
I understand that, and I think that it particularly applies to town administrators. I had to beat you to the punch on that one. But I think planning boards in particular are very unique. It's a very demanding job. It's very technical, and I do think it requires a sort of a personality skill set that's not very present out there. And I can say that with confidence because I've seen a lot of planning boards, and those people who are sitting on the planning board should not be on those boards. And we end up paying the price for it.
Right.
So I get it, you're right in general, but I think these are very, it's like saying, you know, everybody, you know, all doctors are replaceable, but not everybody's qualified to be a doctor. You have to have a certain acumen to make you able to make the right decisions. I think planning boards are very unique. Zoning boards, a little bit different, but that's one of the reasons why the new state laws even provide cities and towns the ability to merge planning boards and zoning boards into one board now. No disrespect to zoning board members.
So being a planner, would you say that you're more leaning towards having no term limits or just extended term limits?
I don't like unlimited terms, but I do think extending it makes some sense, personally.
I mean, we do have some very qualified people on both boards, so, okay.
And I also say that as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
previous chairman of North Smithfield's planning board, which I was, it's a tough job.
All
So I
right.
think we said 3 options.
Yeah, so we have 3 options. So do we have any further discussion on what the solicitor should have available for next meeting? Do we want to go with repealing it all? Do we want to have an option to repeal, just the option for the extending, or do nothing? Do we want to see that other option to repeal it?
I think we do, yeah.
Yes.
And then next meeting, you said we can do a public hearing and the first reading, or do we have to wait and decide which one we're doing?
I think we could, at the public hearing, the proposed repealing can be presented at that. But if we're going to do 2 meetings, then I would do a first reading on the repeal. It really depends how quickly the council wants to address this. Do you want the public hearing and the second reading for this on the same night? If you don't, then I would say we'll have another first reading on the repeal, and then put the public hearing for both of them, and then a second reading for both of them, and make a decision. Or I could just present the repeal at the public hearing on this.
I mean, I think we should try and move it along.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the latter.
Then I'll do that. So if we set
Can I
a
ask a question?
Yeah.
public hearing,
Can I just ask you?
that's, yeah.
So say you went 2 meetings. After the second meeting, how long would it take to institute change?
It has to be posted for 15 days.
So we'd be looking at the first week of February,
Yeah.
potentially.
But don't forget, all members of boards continue to serve until.
Well, that was
duly
where I was
appointed
going with it, that as long as.
There's no disruption in service at this point,
Okay.
and that's,
So what would you recommend, 2 meetings or 1?
I recommend 1. I think we could do, we've done this in the past, I know there's some, I don't think this is a complicated issue. I think we can do a public hearing. At the public hearing, a proposal for the repeal can be presented, basically amending this to say repeal it. And then after the public hearing is closed, the council can pass this as is, pass it as amended, a repeal, or it fails. And I think we satisfy the ordinance with regard to a first reading discussion, because theoretically, any amendment during a public hearing can come up and be an amendment before the second reading.
Okay,
So I'm fine with that.
okay. Is
Do you have
everyone
a
good with
date?
that?
And then, sorry, one last question, Town Solicitor. If we do determine that we want to repeal this ordinance or the term limits, do we then need to obviously update the ordinance to reflect?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
You're talking about physically on paper, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, you may not be aware, but the clerk and I have, and the council's assistant, we have done an update. We have a company called, what's it, General Code?
okay,
That won a contract, and we have them on a retainer.
yeah,
Now, we're not gonna have the code, we're gonna have the code updated every year.
okay, excellent.
So this will go on the books, it'll be listed on the website if it's changed on the new laws, and then at the end of the year, it'll be updated.
But we don't necessarily need to wait on that update, the physical update.
No, once you
tangible update.
pass it
Okay.
and 15 days goes by and it's posted, it becomes law,
Okay,
provided it's not vetoed.
okay.
Then you have to override the veto.
Can I just make a comment about general code? So when you look on general code on the website, you can look under new law, and it will show all the ordinances that have been updated. I have a supplemental changes going in, like, maybe about 3 times a year. I do them when there's a few together, so it's a little bit less costly. So if you look in the code and you don't see it in the new version, look under new law, and that means that is a new law, but it's just not put into the book yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're all set on that one.
Yeah, do you want to put the public hearing at the next council meeting,
Yeah,
January 6th?
I think so.
is that what the next meeting is?
So it'll be it'll be a public hearing on that day and a second reading. Public hearing first and second reading.
Mhm.
Do you want to wait then?
Well,
I'm not gonna be here January 6th.
Well, do you want to, then we should make it a meeting when everybody's here, because this seems to be a.
I think so, yes.
So let's do it to the 20th? You're here then, right? Is everyone else here on the 20th? Yeah,
Mhm, yes.
okay. Okay, so January 20th? Okay. All right, open forum pursuant to 42-46-6D, maximum 3 minutes per person. Would anyone else like to speak tonight? Anyone? One more time? No? All right, before we adjourn, I just want to take a moment to have a moment of silence for Mr. Pacetti, Al Pacetti, who passed away last week. He did volunteer many countless hours in the town throughout the years, so if we can just take a moment to have a moment of silence for him. Thank you. Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.